Hello, I'm Sharon Scott Wilson, publisher of Golf Course Trades, and welcome to another Golf Course Trades Learning Center event. Now, you may have seen in our April issue of Golf Course Trades, our Golf Course Trades April issue, Jay Flemma wrote a very nice article about Philadelphia Cricket Club's A.W. Tillinghast design course. I'll get that straightened out here. And today, Jay Flemma will be here interviewing the course's PGA Director of Golf, Jim Smith Jr., and Chief Planning Officer, Dan Meersman. Thank you again, and I will go ahead and exit the screen and leave it to you, Jay.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this Golf Course Trades webinar. We have as our very special guest today the PGA Director of Golf and the Head Superintendent Director of Grounds of one of the greatest country clubs in America, indeed the oldest country club in America, Philadelphia Cricket Club. Everybody, please welcome Dan Meersman and Jim Smith Jr. Fellas, it's great to have you.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Jay. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jack.
Since 1854, one of the oldest clubs in the entire country, please tell us a little bit about the long and venerable history of Philadelphia Cricket Club.
You want me to take it, Dan?
Sure.
All right. Well, as you mentioned, we are the oldest country club in America, founded in 1854. The origins of the club trace back to cricket-playing gypsies called Zingaris that would travel to the United States. They didn't have a home cricket pitch. Many of them were German. And they partnered up and played some cricket with the University of Pennsylvania students. And the two groups decided that it was time to have their own location. And so the origin of the Philadelphia Cricket Club is the Zingaris from Europe and the University of Pennsylvania students deciding to found the club.
Do we have any idea how the fellows in Europe happened to learn cricket?
We don't. But, ironically, to this day, we still actually do play cricket. We don't have a huge team, but our cricket players do get over to London and play some of the premier pitches around the world. So that happened in 1854. Golf was added to the equation in 1895 with the building of a 9-hole golf course on what is now our Chestnut Hill campus. And subsequent to that, they added another 9 holes. Willie Tucker is credited with the design, but there were several hands in it. And it wasn't long after that the 1907 and 1910 U.S. Opens were contested on the St. Martin's course down in our Chestnut Hill location. Not long after that, there were some tweaks made. And then some of our members decided that they wanted to have a new golf course built on a bigger location. So where Dan and I's offices are, which is in Flourtown, which is about 5 miles as the crow flies, they enlisted the member, and we all know A.W. Tillinghast from his work around the country. Tilly got the job as a member, and they built the Wissahickon Course in 1922. And then in 2002, 80 years later, the club decided to build another 18-hole golf course on land that was adjacent to the Wissahickon Course, and it's now called Militia Hill. It was done by Herdston and Fry, and we are the only club in the world to build golf courses in 3 different centuries, which is a unique feature of this place.
Tell us a little bit about the Wissahickon Course, about Tillinghast's build and the ideas that he had, and trace the history of it from there up until the time when you had your most recent renovation around 2014.
So, I'd love to say that we know all the information and we have really clear records, but we don't. So the best educated assumptions and knowledge that we have is that Tilly was enlisted to build the course in 1922. He went ahead and built it. And at that time, if you're familiar with Tillinghast's work, he was doing work all over the place. There was a huge, between 1918 and 1929, he was really, really busy. But sometime shortly after they built the golf course, they came back to Tilly and said, there's some changes that we'd like to see. And, speculation as to whether or not Tilly was too busy or he was upset that he was asked to make some modifications. But in the end, Tilly did not do the modifications. They actually went to William Flynn, who, as you know, Jay, the Philadelphia School of Architecture, right? Flynn and Crump and Tillinghast and George Thomas. Ironically enough, Thomas and Crump were members at the cricket club at the time Tilly was here. But William Flynn got the job, and he made some changes. And if you look at some of the photographs from back then, you can see the bunker styling, is more reminiscent of Flynn in the photos that we have from like 1929. And then it really kind of sat, just as a members golf course for however many years it was. And, as is often the case at country clubs, different fingers got into the mix and plant a tree here, take a bunker out there, and sort of the original design got bastardized, for lack of a better description. And then back in, I guess, Dan started in 2011. Is that right, Dan?
2009.
2009. God, we're getting old. Sorry.
Yeah.
And, when Dan came on board, one of the first things he did was he got the St. Martin's golf course we basically restored the St. Martin's course in-house with Dan and his crew and with Keith Foster overseeing it. That led to discussions about, imagine what this place could be if we really, went back to what Tilly had intended. And after an initial effort that failed to get the membership to buy into it, we subsequently did get a vote to go ahead and do the work. And Keith Foster was hired, and Dan's going to probably take it from here. But in 2013, we closed, and we started the work. Dan, correct me if I'm wrong. We started in June of 13, and we opened up in May of 14, right?
Yeah, that was the beauty of it, was that we never lost any member events because we front-loaded member events in 2013 and then back-loaded them in 14. So, regarding your member guests and things of that nature, we started the Wednesday after the U.S. Open at Marion and mobilized the week prior to that. And I think we laid the last piece of putting green sod on September 28th. And so it was a very fast construction time frame. And then we had the whole off season to kind of just polish the stone prior to reopening Memorial Day weekend 2014.
Well, it's been really well received by everybody all across golf, whether they're interested in golf course architecture, whether they're interested in travel, whether they're interested in venues that might host big events, or whether they're regional to the area and are proud of a local guy done good. If I'm not mistaken, wasn't Tillinghast himself a member of Philadelphia Cricket Club?
He was, and there are actually letters out there that we have records of that he sent to different people, and he was fond of calling this place sort of his crown. It was, in his eyes, this was his crown jewel. At the time, when he was building Wingfoot and San Francisco Golf Club and Brook Hollow and Baltus Row and all these places, obviously they were all great golf courses, but in his eyes at that time, this was his best golf course. And Raiders may say otherwise, but we feel good that he loved it the way he did.
Well, I can tell you from a rating perspective that the work that was done there has absolutely catapulted the Wissahickon Course into the premier conversations of the very greatest golf courses in the country. Let's take a walk through some of the holes that we have here in our slideshow. We'll open with one of my very favorites, the second hole. It's such a charming routing cricket club in that it has a front 10 and a back 8. And in particular, the second hole comes right back to the clubhouse after you play the first. And in fact, sometimes the clubhouse apparently comes into play if you're not careful. Tell us a little bit about hole number 2 and walk us through this beautiful photo.
Dan?
Yeah, so like you said, one plays away and two comes back to the clubhouse. The farmhouse does come into play, and that's part of the charm of the golf hole. I think one thing that makes Wissahickon just fantastic is that it very much has that feel of the late 1800s Pennsylvania rural farm setting, and it's a gentle walk, it's a gradual walk, and you get that right from the start on holes 1 and 2. During the restoration, we did slide this green just slightly, about 10 feet away from there. So we still wanted it to feel close and feel a part of it. But at the same time, you wanted to minimize the number of balls that were being hit at the clubhouse and things of that nature. Just give it a little bit of breathing room.
Hey, Jay, I want to add one thing. This angle of this photograph is really interesting. If you went back to a before picture, and we have one at this angle, you actually can't see a portion of what is the left side of the fairway or to our right because so many trees lined this hole and leaned over. It was completely tree choked. And this hole was a perfect example of it.
About how many trees did you remove in the restoration project?
It was a lot, Jay. There's not a lot of good that comes out with given the numbers, but it was a lot. I mean, we had, for one, if I go back to 2009 before we engaged in our work with Keith, we had growing environments that were choked out. I mean, as you look at this picture here, you'd be surprised as well that there were maybe 2 or 3 pines that were between the green and the clubhouse. And I'm in this picture showing the green away from the clubhouse. You couldn't believe that there was even space for those. So I mean, you could stand on the edge of certain putting greens and reach your arm out and hold on to a pine branch. And so it's one that we clean up those growing environments. Then you knew that you were going to move certain bunkers in a sympathetic restoration. We're going to kind of match up with better match modern day playing distances to appropriately challenge the low handicap golfer and give the higher handicapper a break. So you kind of had to clear the palette a little bit. We also have a railroad trestle that goes right through the golf course that has native features now that really highlight. We're coming close to Father's Day now. And I say Father's Day is really when we have our makeup on and when the fescue turns bright gold and you get the waves of fescue look, and it just adds those finishing touches to the golf course.
Let's move on to our next photo. Okay, the third green. Tell us a little bit about the touch-up and restoration we've done here.
So the third green here, when we had started, this was one of the greens that was unoriginal. It was quite long. It didn't fit physically. If you looked at an overhead map, you could tell that right away. We did have solid overhead imagery of this, and Keith was able to do a wonderful job of recapturing this. And again, the way that he created the bunkering on the right-hand side for being 2 par 3s, these dueling par 3s close to each other, 3 in the foreground and 10 in the background on the left. You feel that there's good separation there. In addition to this, too, this par 3 has a lot of setup flexibility. So you can have a 99-yard par 3 if you want, and if you kind of go back of the green and back of the tee, you can stretch that out quite a bit. There's also some really nice visual aesthetic variety you can have going left side, right side of the tee box. So you can really bring a lot of different things into play here. After the restoration, one thing I thought was interesting was, we took a par 5, made it into a par 4. The course is very hard to score against par, right? It's a par 70, which makes it very enjoyable for the regular golfer. But I remember when we did a walking tour with members, one thing that was quite enjoyable was that, I thought some of the older members would be the ones trailing on that tour, and they weren't. They were the ones right up front with our restoration chair and Keith. And it was our lower handicappers that were hanging back, and they were trying to figure out where to score on the golf course. And I said, well, you can score on number 3, and from there it's kind of game on. So there's a great mix of holes, but those guys are really kind of baffled by the fact that they couldn't, they weren't going to be able to overpower this golf course.
Well, I'll tell you, though, this shows the distinction of how you can make a golf course much better without necessarily making it much harder, and especially not making it much harder for the average player. So if those guys are confused, that means that the architects did their job well.
Yes, absolutely.
Let's move on to the next photo, number 5. Now, you folks did a little bit of a switcheroo with the routing. Did not holes 4, 5, and 6 switch places with holes 7, 8, and 9?
We did do that, Jay, but ironically enough, it is actually the original routing. It was actually Flynn who in 1929 flipped it to what we had played for, essentially 80 years, a little more than 80 years. So the routing that we have now is the original routing. And the fifth hole here, as you look at this photograph, there were two gigantic trees on either side. There were very weakly shaped bunkers, and really nothing in the back. Other than pine trees. As Dan noted, pine trees were very popular at some point at the cricket club because we had a heck of a lot of them. And to me, this par three, if you ask people who play the golf course for the first time, what par three strikes them the most, it typically is this one. I think in part because when you stand on the tee, you get a clear view of everything. You see both bunkers, you see the three bunkers in the back, you see the whole green complex, you can see the creek. And it just has an incredibly striking appearance with the tree removal and the rebunkering. And to Dan's point, this is another green, with Keith having redone it, where pin position means everything. We as you know, we hosted the Professional National Championship in 2015, and we hosted the Constellation Senior Players Championship in 2016. This hole, with a front right pin, was the second hardest hole on the golf course. Even when
certainly. Yep. Okay, look at all the defense on that side. Remember, everybody, as we look at the hole, we're looking back. So when Jim says front right, what we're looking at would be our top left. There's a bunker there. There's a swale there, and there's water. Okay, you got to drop that thing like a paratrooper. But look at the beautiful thumbprint over middle of our right. Look at the two shelves in the back. I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I count 10 pin placements on the screen.
It's true, and it can, Dan can put a hole in one pin on here, which would be sort of back center, and everything funnels, and then you move it 10 feet right or 10 feet left, and you're struggling to make a bogey.
Yeah, or you move it to either of those shelves in the back. That back right one looks murder especially. What a great hole. And how long would that hole play from, say, the regulation tees and then from the tips?
Member play is typically in the 160 range. From the tips, Dan, correct me, I think it's like 220.
Yeah, it's like yes, exactly.
And remind us all again, the yardage depends on everything, including, terrain and weather and elevation. But what is the member yardage that they generally play for the whole course?
We play so our tees are numbered 1, 2, 3, 4. We try to get away from color. Our member tees typically are the 2-3 tees, which is about 63.50. Our 2 tees are about 66. Our 1-2 tees are about 68.80. And if you want to tip it out, we can take it all the way back to just under 7,100.
And are the 2-3 mixed tee rated properly so you can play that and put in your handicap to the gin system?
Correct.
I'm moving on. I know that you loved that part 3. We'll come and talk about a different part 3 in a minute. But before we get there, here we are with one of the true great moments of the restoration and, renovation. And something that I think Tilly's got to be smiling up at in heaven and grabbing Mackenzie on one side and McDonald on the other and saying, yeah, guys, look at that. It's that beautiful, great Hazard Hell's Half Acre on number 7.
Dan?
Yeah, it's great. I mean, it is visually striking. It's very strategic. It's what the kind of the funny anecdote from I think about this hole from the project is, when we closed for the golf course, obviously members couldn't play the golf course, and they Jim had a great reciprocal program he had set up, but our Militia Hill golf course is just up the hill to the right of this picture, and that's where our members were primarily playing that year, the close period, and due to erosion sedimentation control programs, we started on the high side of the property and worked our way towards the creek. So this was actually the second hole that was done. And, members playing Militia Hill had a chance very early during the close period. They were staring at a beautifully finished Great Hazard on number 7. And it kind of teased them the whole year that, hey, you're forcing me to look at this beautifully finished hole and making us wonder what the rest of this product's going to look like when it's finished. And so, it caused members to kind of lick their chops for the next 10 months, before they could ever step foot on it. And and that wasn't the intent, but that was the net effect of how the erosion and sedimentation program laid out. But it's magnificent. Again, this gold fescue you see here, that's coming in the next few weeks. Even when the fescue kind of folds over late in the year, then you have a little blue stem that comes up and provides nice color and contrast for the rest of the year. It's just a magnificent hole, and it's a welcome breath of fresh air after you play 4, 5, and 6 as well to land on a par 5.
Let's move along now. This is an interesting picture here. You were mentioning about how there were changes made to number 10, and in particular that green, in this case, was moved several yards to the right.
Yeah, so our parking lot and the way members enter the golf shop is just to that left of that fence line there. And, we had a couple places on the golf course, number 15 as well, where one out of every handful of balls would go out of bounds. So, we just a little bit of breathing room there. Keith, I thought, did a really nice job fitting in the tees on this hole. That was a tough challenge. Again, with some of the back green surround of 3 is very strong, which creates quality separation there for really how tight the proximity there is. So, Keith did a nice job there. And again, the way the foreground of the bunker is, the way the fescue from the tee is framed, so you can see the bunker from the tee, how far we kind of brought that fescue line back. If somebody hits a bad shot, most people do end up clearing the fescue and they're fine. They're still in the rough, but they're fine. So it's a pretty golf hole, and it's a fair golf hole, and it really turned out really nice, considering the challenges that we had of being kind of in a corner of a property there.
Just so that people can get some sort of idea of where that green was positioned before the renovation. If you look at the mowing line through the fescue, if you were to hit a ball along that line, that's where the green was originally.
Yeah.
And so you can see how close you were to hitting a golf ball into somebody's stock portfolio.
Yeah, correct.
Either that or addition their turtle soup or something. Yes.
That's right. Yeah, and even the detail of the walk path that you mentioned, I mean, that's strategically placed there, so folks from the tee, most folks can see the left edge of the bunker and can identify where that is. So, that's you get pretty detailed as you start to take a look around the golf course, and it's we're glad it's provided a great experience for people.
And so now we'll move along to the back 9. I want to jump over to, you brought it back for an encore, okay? The Hell's Half Acre was fantastic, but now we have Hell's Quarter Acre on number 14. Whose idea was this? And tell us about how you came to build that hazard.
Yeah, I give Keith a lot of credit as far as proposing this feature as others, and reintroducing those was strong. And if you take a look at our membership makeup, we have probably one of the strongest women's programs in the United States, in addition to our male play. And these features were strong. You were putting in the Great Hazard or the Hell's Quarter Acre. I mean, these are forced carries that you have to navigate, and to get those in on a member play golf course, could be challenging if not done well. And he did a great job. I mean, here's where you see kind of the earth that was removed in the foreground to create that separation to fit those bunkers in. That was flipped up to the landing zone. So this is a short par 4 from the regular member tee. What that did when it went to the landing zone, it extended the elevation, where members, instead of kind of landing on a downhill that kind of slingshot their ball another 50 yards, they're landing more on a flat portion of the hole to kind of hold that ball back a little bit. So again, if you play the up tee as a member and you're a low handicap golfer, you'll still probably land on that down slope and have a wedge in. But if you go to the very, very back tee, and usually the wind is in your face on that hole, those bunkers in the landing zone and the elevation of that now match your driving distance, and it becomes a very hard par 4. There's definitely, if you're in the rough, trying to force carry, hold a shot, it can be difficult at times. And then there's phenomenal, shot value variety if the hole is either left or right. If the hole is to the left, which would be all right in this photo, that draw really comes into play. And if you want to snug that pin over on the right-hand side, that same draw is not, you can't play that shot. I mean, the thin strip of bluegrass you see between the green and that bunker there on the left. One thing Keith and I did in the project was, he said, hey, if courses were truly old school, they wouldn't have this collar and this intermediate cut and have these wide swaths, which do two things. They really prevent you from using hole locations original hole locations that were close to the edge of the green pad. And then in addition, what it does for a championship golf course, it puts your hole location, by the time you go, okay, intermediate rough, collar, now 4 paces, your pin is very far away from the hazard or the trouble. And if you're trying to challenge some of the best golfers in the world at various times, you're going to have a very hard time doing that. So, now you have all this additional cupping variety, which really allows you to be kind to the higher handicap golfer or at certain times, and very challenging to other caliber of play.
And how long will that hole play from the tips?
About 440.
All right, so let's move on now. The finisher, 18. I'm given to understand that you reposition the green even closer to the clubhouse so folks can really enjoy watching people finish their round while sitting down and having a bite to eat or a drink.
I think Dan and his crew did an awesome job here with Keith and their vision. Greg Geyer, who was the restoration chair, Al Thorell, who was the president. It took several key leaders to put their minds together and set this green in a way. Believe it or not, prior to the restoration, there was a path. There was literally a driveway that came in off of West Valley Green Road, went behind the green and in front of the patio. People would drive over to the left side of the clubhouse, drop their bag, drive up into the parking lot. Literally cars going right within 15 feet of the 18th green all day. So they had the vision to close that permanently. And then we expanded the patio because it's such a great location. And the green, as you mentioned, the only area of the golf course that we tend to get hit a little bit with flooding was down here on number 18 that was significant. So they did raise the green. Dan, remind me, a little over a foot?
Yeah, a little over a foot, and then it shifted just slightly to the left. So the more the backdrop was as you're coming to the clubhouse versus, over to the right where you were kind of hitting towards the road. And Evan Schiller here, I love Evan's photos. I mean, he's just phenomenal. And, he captures that foreground cut where that approach feels very strong. You can see into the bunker. You can see how the green's been elevated slightly. But Evan does a nice job of really giving somebody who may only be on property one time when the sun angles aren't like this. He gives you an appreciation of all the wonderful undulations that are the best traits of any golf course,
I want to bring you back to one of my favorite memories about that hole, and I hope it's one of your favorite memories about that hole, which is the time that the 18th fairway became a track. Okay, it was the day of the 2014 grand reopening, and if you'll recall, a storm out of the pages of the Last Judgment came rolling on through as everybody was finishing.
Yep.
And just tell us a little bit about your memories about golfers becoming track stars real quick, trying to outrun the thunderstorm down the 18th fairway, and maybe some other nice memories of that wonderful day.
That it was when we did that. As you mentioned, the weather generally cooperated, but later in the day we got waffled with a really significant storm. But it was really nice to have, not only our members get to enjoy it, but, you obviously joined us among, a bunch of golf dignitaries and notables because we wanted the world to see the place. I mean, we, as a club, we kind of had closed doors for, 80 years. In the cricket club, nobody really knew what it was. Nobody knew how good it was. Nobody knew the bones that it had. And, I just remember, and every once in a while I get calls from other clubs who are going to go into a restoration, and they'll ask me for some of the information that we used. And that gives me a chance to look at the list of all the people that, you were on that list, and a lot of it. And it's just I think about all the really great people that got to come and see how special this place is. I know I speak for Dan when I say, the fact that we get to come here every day, a lot of times that might dampen your enthusiasm for the place, but it hasn't for either of us. We know how lucky we are, and we look at this every day, and we appreciate it every day. It's that special a place, and this view is iconic. You know, looking at the clubhouse, looking at the 18th hole, it's just a really, really, really special club, special membership. And, you know, Jay, I can't thank you enough because you helped put us on the map, frankly, with the article that you wrote. And, you know, you were very effusive in your praise of the place, and that led to other people going, Jay said that, I better go see it. And it's led to a lot of notoriety for the club. But in the end, I think what we're most concerned about is just making sure that our members and guests have a great experience every time they come here. Conditioning wise, service wise, what have you.
Well, everybody had such a wonderful time that they have had several tournaments, both USGA events and PGA of America events there. Tell us a little bit about the events that you've had at Wissahickon, and tell us about what you've got planned for the future and the 100th anniversary celebrations next year.
So we hosted, our first major event was the Professional National Championship with the PGA of America, 312 club professionals in 2015. That was followed the next year by the Constellation Senior Players Championship, which was won by Bernhard Langer. And by the way, just to give you a sense of how this place plays competitively, Dan had the place really firm, and it was windy. And we played it at about 6,700, and the winning score was 1 over. And Dan is a Michigan State guy and has really great relationships with the Big Ten, so he was able to work with the Big Ten, and we hosted their championship in late April, early May of 2019. And then, of course, we were supposed to have the USGA 4-ball last year, but COVID decided otherwise, and we just announced that we're going to replace the 2020, which we missed, with the 2024 4-ball. 2022 next year is the 100-year anniversary of the Wissahickon Course, and we're going to celebrate it by what we think, you know, by giving back to golf, basically. So we're going to host an event for the Women's Golf Association of Philadelphia, the Men's Golf Association of Philadelphia, the Philadelphia PGA. We're doing a plaque event for our members where anybody that's won paint or a major championship is going to have an event. And we also reconstituted what's called the Tillinghast Cup. So the top 10 Tillinghast clubs from around the country, they're each going to send a team here, and we're going to host them for a few days of golf.
Tell us which clubs will participate.
Off the top of my head, we've got Wingfoot, Baltusrol, Somerset Hills, Baltimore Country Club, Cricket, Brook Hollow, Fenway, San Francisco Golf Club. Who am I? Oh, Quaker Ridge, and I forgot one. Ridgewood. That's right, Ridgewood.
And when will this event take place?
It's not quite. It hasn't been scheduled yet. I have to work with a few of the golf professionals, but I would expect it would be midsummer.
Midsummer of this year?
Of 22.
Of 22. Right. Well, save me a spot in the media center. I would love to cover that event.
Got it.
Well, everybody, we've had a terrific show this month. Join us again in a month. We're going to have more special guests from the golf industry. We'll take you to some other terrific courses around the world. And I will send it back to Sharon Scott Wilson. Thank you, Dan, and thank you, Jim, and congratulations. Everybody, keep your eyes peeled. Philadelphia Cricket Club is #1 with a bullet, rising fast.
Thanks, Jack.
Oh,
Thanks,
wow. This was excellent. We really learned a lot, and I personally have put this on my bucket list to come and see you guys. What a marvelous looking course. And I wanted to say that if you are viewing this webinar on YouTube, please subscribe to the Golf Course channel so that you can never miss another presentation like this. Jay is going to help us a lot. We're also going to have a few other presentations going forward and each month. And so we welcome you. And if you would like to present something yourself or share your experiences with your peers, please email me, editor@thetrades.com. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Sharon.
Take care, everybody. See you next month.